Hey everyone, today, or maybe tonight, depending on when you're watching, maybe it's not even today, maybe it's not tonight, maybe tomorrow, maybe yesterday. But either way, if I hear that you might still be scared of tanking, so I got some tips. We're gonna run through some suggestions I have. Take them. You know, you can do what you want with it, or you can stay being scared. But anyways, I'm joking. Let's jump into it, and hopefully these tips can help you. If they do, let me know in the comments down below, or if you have any other suggestions to give, please let someone know. Tell them what you've done to overcome your fear of tanking. All right, thank you. Alright, so we're going to talk about tip number one. The most important one is make sure and look and see what type of healer you have. A lot of times I've noticed when I get into parties with tanks or newer tanks, you can tell that there's some issues and or just a lack of understanding in what is the job of that particular healer they're running with. So you have your healer split up into two different classes or divisions, and a burst healer and a damage mitigation healer. I know that you've been told the entire time, make sure you're doing big pulls, and that's the most important thing to do, is make sure you're just trying to pull all the mobs you can to the end. But you want to make sure that if you're going to do this, you're not doing this with like a scholar or a sage. You want to try and do a lot of big pulls, really huge pulls, only if you have a astrologian, but particularly a white mage. Their main job is just bursting out hills, and then they also have the ability, Holy, where they can stun enemies, which is extremely effective and mitigating the damage you're taking. Point number two would also be make sure you run or tip number two, make sure you're running the support or duty trust systems. The moment you unlock those, I would suggest running those first for many reasons. Not only do you get a better and understanding of the story, because you can take your time, your full time in there. You don't have to rush. You don't have to try and be nervous about learning the mechanics properly or anything. So you want to, you don't have to worry about trying to learn the mechanics or anything. Like you can take your time and learn them. You can get an overall better experience with the game, I believe, doing it that way. But it also teaches you, and this is a good tip for healers or tanks, but it teaches you how to do your role properly in that particular dungeon, because it changes each time. Now they've streamlined it a lot, made it a lot easier to understand, in the sense of the earlier days the dungeons were a little kind of jumbled. They didn't really follow the same rules and patterns that you see, like the typical dungeon flow now, where it's just big room or long halls, and you pull to the end of each doorway. That's a new thing that they've added to. So once you're doing that, I think another important tip would be tip three. This is something I had to learn because I kept hearing about the Dark Knight storyline. So I really wanted to play that so bad. So I bought the story skip of that. And this is a long time ago. I think this is when the new DLC, or the new expansion at the time, was just, I think Shadowbringer, which is funny because it wasn't that long ago, but it sounds like it's so long ago now that we're in Endwalker times. So you definitely want to, if you did buy a story skip, or say either it's for the the story, or for your role, that job, whatever tank role you're gonna go as, I would definitely make sure you go and play through the storyline of your that particular job, because actually that teaches you a lot how to not only for tanking, but how to tank as that job, because each job, they kind of roll the same, very similar, all four of them, you already know. I think the most similar ones to me would be Warrior and Dark Knight. The ones where you kind of branch out a lot more is Paladin and Gunbreaker. But yeah, so I would definitely make sure to play through the stories. It'll teach you how to get the flow of your job better and kind of master your job. I mean, there's a story for a reason. If you see, everything has a reason in this game. If you bypassed it, sure, go ahead. You know, it's your money. You do what you need, but you are doing yourself a disservice to miss out not only on the story, but on some much-needed training that you could possibly receive. I would definitely be careful about which job you pick to start. Now, every job in the game is pretty well optimized in the sense of you can play through anything with any job you want. But if you're gonna tank, I would suggest you're new to tanking, like you've never even played. Like my background experience for tanking would be when DC Universe Online. It was a game from like 2011, but it was a superhero video game, and they had 4 roles in that game. What is it? Tank, healer, and controller. And side note, a job that's very similar to a controller, like in terms of like from DC, is Bard. Bard, or I guess you could say a lot of physical range DPS jobs, but Bard in particular, and the ability to like strengthen your party and everything, and party's abilities, and like kind of give out heals, boost heals. So in DC, things ran completely different. You have a whole power system, and that power system is what you use to do all your abilities. So a controller was like, in that world, the most important role, because once you lose power, you can't do anything. If you're going to go on you're going to choose a tank, and you want to have a tank as your, a good starting tank. And the 2 tanks you have unlocked immediately are from the jump, when the game starts, is Warrior or Marauder and Gladiator. I think you're putting yourself into a steep uphill climb to go with Paladin. I think you definitely need to start looking maybe more towards Marauder, or even Marauder, because then that turns into Warrior. But either way, I believe that Warrior's probably your best starter tank. For some fact that, it's pretty easy. Look, you see how I took that big hit, and the rotation's really easy. But the biggest thing is you feel almost immortal, in the sense of you can, like all the other tanks, including another tank that is, I think, also a really good starter one, is Dark Knight. But the problem is you can't unlock Dark Knight, like if you don't buy any story skips or anything, you can't play Dark Knight until level, beyond level 60, I think 50 or 60. But either way, you have to unlock the foundation first, and you have to play through all of A Realm Reborn. So that's not a tank you can start with. You're gonna have to choose one of these 2, and I think the 2 to start with out of the 2 would be Marauder, and that then turns into Warrior. You just feel like, again, immortal. You can't be stopped. I'm gonna so it goes again with what I was saying. So you kind of when you see the cohesion of parties. If you aren't a warrior, you can't really get away. There's a lot of things I can do. Earlier I was talking about make sure to check what type of healer you have, so you can see what type of pulls you can do. When you're a warrior, you can kind of almost bypass that, because even if you're taking on more enemies than your healer can deal with, the thing is you can and you're popping all your necessary damage mitigation, but you can you can heal yourself. You have so many heals. You have at least 3 to 4 heals in your arsenal, where no other tank has that. Your survivability is out of this world. It's insane. So that's something I would say. That's just being able to know, oh man, it's kind of like your oh shit button, raw intuition. But that basically, that's your immortal button. And then you got so deal with warrior. So to kind of just wrap everything up, I think the biggest takeaway is run your duty support, duty trust system as much as you can. Think of it as your training sessions. From there, you definitely want to then start running with a real, with an actual party. So people, non-NPCs, hopefully. And from there, you want to then that's when you really want to start looking at and seeing, hey, what type of healer am I running with? is this a damage mitigation healer or a burst healer? That would change. Oops. That's going to change how you're gonna pull when you're in pulling trash mobs. If you're with a damage mitigation, you want to pull. You can pull some mobs, right? You know, it's not saying go for a pack of just 3 mobs or anything like that. No one wants to do that. No healer, even no matter how new. Beyond that, you can go maybe 1, 2, but maybe not 3 or 4 that you can normally pull off when you're running with a white mage or a burst healer. You know, Astrologian, I definitely have more experience playing with a white mage, but I know they've switched over and made Astro more of a akin to your the white mage. But if you're with a scholar or a sage, sage is a bunch of button mash. So, you know, think about for all the gunbreakers, you know, all those buttons you need to mash and everything. Think about that, but now you're healing and trying to keep you alive. So you want to kind of keep their button mashing down as much as you can. Your job is to absorb the damage, but also set the flow in this dungeon. You don't need it to be unnecessarily stressful. All the mechanics will take care of that for you. And then again, so if you bought the story skip, a story job skip or anything, make sure to play through your job storyline. It'll teach you. I'm talking about from beginning. So you can, if you do remember, and like you leveled up like the base job, for all the jobs that have baselines, you know, that max out at 30, you want to then, you know, you go from there. But if you're playing a job like and you skipped all of that, play through your job storyline. It's going to teach you how to play that job, how that job's meant to be played, and then you'll actually get some good story, especially. You know, I can speak more for, you know, as you hear over and over, Dark Knight, Dark Knight. But any of the stories in the game is worth getting, to be honest. I don't think, you know, we're playing this game, and if you're taking long, pretty much you're into reading. So that will be no problem for you. So I suggest, you know, definitely run through that. It's a good help. Help yourself, and you have to do big giant pulls every time you get a chance. Then maybe you need to not play Paladin or even Dark Knight. Maybe you need to switch over to trying to master your Warrior, because you'll be able to do all the giant pulls you want. You still want to go easy on your healers out there, but you'll be able to get away with a lot more damage coming your way because you'll be able to at least heal from it. Well, yeah, so that'll do it. Hopefully these tips help you out. Again, don't be scared. You know, I think this, don't put too much pressure on yourself. Again, it's a game. I know for the longest I used to put a lot of pressure on myself in how I was doing and how making sure, you know, it's more of that you don't want to mess up anyone's, you know, experience of the game or anything, but no, everyone's messing up, making mistakes constantly, and you're not going pro in the game. You're just playing it for fun, and, you know, don't take it as that serious. So, you know, just enjoy yourself. Get in there, play, do your training when you can. And, you know, just don't play Paladin.